Hey yo, it's your boy Kaliko. In this episode of Chasing Fire, we are going to be trimming and shaping the rough shape of our stone. In the last episode of Chasing Fire, I made a mistake, and I want to let you guys know about it right now. Now, I'm probably going to go back and re-edit that video to take that mistake out and replace the way it should be, but over the course of carving this stone, I had it pop off the dop 3 times. The first 2 times it popped off the dop, I was working in really cold temperatures. My hands were freezing, and I thought that maybe the wax had gotten a little bit too brittle, and that's why it popped off the dop. But the last time the stone popped off the dop, it was normal temperatures, and it just had to be because some water got in between the stone and the dop wax. Now, the only reason I think that happened is I think that I polished the back of my stone too much to be dopping it and have it hold on there. So if you're watching this video and you haven't started working on your stone yet, you haven't actually polished the black and the flat, don't polish it past a 600 Nova point. If you polish it to a 600 Nova point, your dop wax should still stick really well. If you take it to a 3000 like I did, there's a potential that it's not going to stick to the dop wax very well, and it's going to pop off and you're going to have to redop it, because that's what I had to do. So polish to a 600 and then do it up to a 3000 after you finish the rest of the stone. But as far as that goes, we're going to get back to trimming and pre-shaping this stone right now. We have the stone on a dop stick, and we have its general overall shape. But I've found myself fine-tuning fire agate as I go over and over again. Seeing something that I didn't see before I think needs a little bit more work with a grit. And for that reason, you always want to have a rag, basically a shop towel of some kind, so you can dry the stone as you're working it and check the imperfections, because if you're working with water, water will cover up a lot of the imperfections that you have in the stone. Now, looking at this stone, there are a couple of areas that I want to work at before I move on to any other grits. So I'm going to want to take my 80 and my 120s to it before I move on to any other grits. And one of the areas is this area right here above my thumb. The way that the agate is sort of laying, and this piece right here is yellow and orange agate, but beyond that it doesn't really have any play of fire on it, and it looks like sort of a secondary bitroidal growth on top of the main area that does have color underneath of it. So I want to get rid of this. I'm also going to go through some more of this line, which was sort of doing that same thing over here. I worked that on the last episode. I'm also going to take off this section of bitroidal crystal growth. I'm also going to take off this section of bitroidal crystal growth. They don't have any color in them that I can tell, and they're sort of blocking an area that does have color that I would rather be better shaped. So I'm going to start off by putting my cutting blade on and cutting some of this stuff before I actually go and grind it with an 80 grit. Put my safety glasses on real fast. This is purely a cutting wheel, and that's purely what I'm going to use it for. I'm just going to use it to get rid of this weak section of agate right here. It does have a little bit of color on the side of it, but it's not enough that I'm really worried about it. And this is pretty much just a straight line cut, so don't want to use too much pressure. The blade starts to rotate around like you saw. It sort of travels. Whoops, not putting enough water on it. Definitely want to make sure I'm putting enough water on the stone. Got rid of that area that I was worried about it breaking off. That area was really thin, and the rest of the stone is nice and thick. So I wanted to get rid of that, and I got it, whoops, dropping it. And I have a nice cut on it. The edge needs to be redone, but that's no big deal. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to this little bloom I have right here, and I'm going to sort of do the same thing, but from a different angle. I'm going from the angle that I can see there's no color. There we go. Looks like it had sort of a weak attachment right there to the color bar anyways, and sort of just broke off on its own. I didn't even have to cut through it that much, that piece. I should take this edge off too. I'm going to take this little edge off right here. All right. 80 grit burr, and I'm going to use this to remove some of my agate. You know what, I'm going to start on one of the pieces I was originally talking about right here. I'm going to take this piece out right here that's on top, and I'm not going to be using a lot of pressure. Just going to be letting the burr do its work and trying to keep the burr away from the area of color I can see that's right below that crease in the agate. Now an 80 grit burr is mighty aggressive, and if you go and put a whole bunch of pressure on it, it will dig into the stone and you'll cut right past your color layers without even noticing it. So you want to keep your pressure really light and let the burr do its work with light pressure, and just let the diamonds go ahead and wear away the stone while using small light circles. And there we go. Gives me a better idea of the line that's going on. Also lets me know that I should burn through the edge of this agate right here, to tell you the truth. I need to put my mask on. Mask time! Now I'm using this 80 grit burr to just trim the thin side of this stone and bring it into where the color bars are. I'm trying to make sure that the whole stone has color showing across the whole top surface of it. That's the overall plan for the stone. We want the whole thing to have color across the whole surface. Now notice how I'm generally just letting the burr do most of the work. The burr is lightly running over the surface of the agate that I'm trying to carve, but I'm not using a lot of pressure. I'm just letting the weight of the burr dig in and remove the stone in the shape that I'm expecting that it's supposed to be in to bring the color out. It's a bit of a guessing game, and just a minor bit of impatience can end up leaving you with a stone that cut through the color bars you really wanted to expose on the top. So when you're using an 80 grit burr, I really advise being gentle and just taking your time and paying attention as the color exposes. Because if you start seeing the bronze color layer, And usually there are some other color layers that are just behind that bronze. So when I start to catch up to where the bronze is starting to show through and I start seeing oranges and yellows and greens and I'm on my 80 grit, I definitely slow down because I don't want to go through those bars, color bars leaving scratches on me. Now, being that this stone has color showing up all around the edges, and a lot of times that color is showing me what layers it's in. You can see where it's sort of cracked in certain areas and came off, and there's color underneath of that. I'm going to start with the area that doesn't have the color, and I'm going to go through that first because that's going to be the most difficult area to mess with mentally. It's going to be the area that plays tricks with, am I there? Am I going too far? Am I really going to be on the best color bar type of deal? Really, when you can't see it until it's just starting to appear, that can play heck with my mind, especially at the end of carving. So I like to definitely do the hard part. I think is going to be first, and that is this section right through here. And then I want to work that section onto the next section and then slowly go section by section until I appear back at the first part I started. And that's my progress for working on stones, because I found, at least myself, if I just start over here and then go 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 over here, the stone never really gets finished, and I'm always sort of questioning what I should be doing next. Whereas if I pick the toughest area and then work in a sort of grid fashion around the stone, ending up back where I started, I come up with a better, faster, finished version. Now, even though I've moved to a 120 grit bullet-shaped point, I'm still trying to expose the color, and I'm still using really light pressure because I don't want to change the color shape of the stone. I want to find the color shape that the stone wants to be in and then follow that as a guide. So once I find the bronze and the green and the orange that are starting to appear and I can see the shape of the stone, I want to concentrate on keeping that shape, because usually that's how your colors are going to run, is in the original shape that the stone wanted to lay at. Once again, I like to use light circular motions to keep the shape of the agate that the agate wants to be in with the color bars. Even a 120 grit can be really aggressive and you can cut through your color bars on accident. So I really try to pay attention, keep the pressure light, and just run the burr where I want to remove agate. Now I'm using my tapered point here to draw some lines and create some creases in the stone where the vitroidal fire agate color bubbles meet. I don't want to have any direct lines, so I want to have nice smooth transitions from one area to another. So I'll use the side of my tapered point to do that,
and I will draw lines inside of the stone just by rubbing in the same area over and over and over again. And that will help me create the creases in the stone that I can later go over with my bullet and sort of shape and smooth out a little bit better to make it sort of flow almost like water. Now, anytime you might start to feel frustration or fatigue over carving your stone, take a break and stop, because it's not worth accidentally damaging a beautiful piece of gemstone because you're tired. Take a break. It can be really amazing how just taking 5 or 10 minutes away from what you're doing can totally reset the mind and rejuvenate the body and give you that gumption and that go to attitude to go back to the stone and make it absolutely phenomenal. Little break can help a whole lot. Now, this 220 bullet shaped Varencore is really great for removing the scratches from the 120 and the 80 grit. It is also really good at getting me closer to the color without ruining a whole bunch of color. It takes a little bit more time to go through color bars with a 220 than it does with an 80 or a 120. So it really helps with creating the creases that I want in the stone, the flowing shape like water flowing over top of the stone, and also brushing up the areas that I used my centered or my tapered point on. That will create some lines and unevenness that the bullet shape going over it in nice circular motions will go and clean that up, and I'll have the crease that I actually wanted to shape with the tapered point instead of, all of the marks that I left with the 120 tapered point.
I hope this episode of Chasing Fire was somewhat informative and helped you along your path to carving a really nice fire agate gemstone. In the next episode of Chasing Fire, we're going to go ahead and have our stone totally shaped and ready for polish. I guess we would call that pre-polish stage. We will be going through the pre-polish stage in the next episode of Chasing Fire, and that episode will be uploaded really soon to YouTube. I'm in the middle of editing it right now. Now, I have this stone pretty much cut and finished, and if you'd like your opportunity to win this stone, you need to buy a raffle ticket for $10. There's only 30 days left in this raffle, and right now there's not that many tickets. My patrons hold most of the tickets in this raffle, so if you want your opportunity to win this stone, which is somewhere between like 60 and 80 carats, probably more like 120 carats. It's somewhere between 60 and 100 carats, I know that. If you'd like your opportunity to win it, and you'd like to help support Mining America, Chasing Fire, your boy Kaliko, if you'd like to help support any of that, then go ahead and get your ticket, because I'm a man of my word, and if only 5 tickets, 20 tickets, 30 tickets sell, I'm going to be giving this stone away for whatever those tickets go for, and that is the first of this year, the first of next year, the end of this year. I'm going to be doing that drawing live right here on my YouTube channel, so pay attention, get your tickets now, because one way or another, I'm giving this beautiful stone away. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that YouTube jazz.